This is J. Krishnamurti's first public talk in Saanen, 1969.
I hope this isn't too hot for you. But you have such bad weather in Europe, and you must be rather glad of the strong sunshine. I hope you enjoy it. I think we should bear in mind all the time during these talks and discussions that this is not a holiday entertainment, nor a philosophical or religious amusement, entertainment. We are undertaking something very, very serious. And it needs not only your complete attention during these discussions and talks, but also, since you have taken the trouble to come here, what you do, what you think, how you live during these 3 or 4 weeks matters a great deal. For we are concerned, involved completely in something very serious. I think it is fairly obvious, as one observes what is taking place in the world, what is happening in America, the violence, the riots, the utter disregard of human life, and what is happening in Europe and in Asia and in the Middle East. Everything points to the urgency of complete, radical revolution of the mind and the heart. I don't think it's anymore a question, the individual and the community, the collective and the personal and all the rest of it. Everything fails in front of this colossal disintegration that is going on. And the politicians and the so-called religious people, the organized Christians and Catholics and Protestants and the Hindus and the Buddhists and the Muslims have not been able to completely bring about peace in the world. No politician will, nor the ideologist, nor the religious dogmatist, or the believer in a particular principle, or an idea or a formula. We need peace, as we need food, clothes, and shelter. It is vital, not only within, but also outwardly. I think most of us are agreed, at least verbally or intellectually, about this, that there must be peace. We can't live as we are living. Confused, disorderly, breeding conflict, hatred, antagonism, division. One is aware of all this. And perhaps some of us may consider that we should do something. But the action is postponed, or find many excuses for not doing, for not changing. And so, observing all this, what a way, as a serious people gathered here for these weeks, what are we going to do? Not theoretically, not act according to some awful or pleasurable principle, or follow a particular design, formula, but as human beings, living daily life in this world of confusion, misery, and abiding sorrow. What is our responsibility? I use that word responsibility, not as a burden, not as something that one has to bear it on one's shoulder and therefore make it something terrible. But to be responsible, to be involved, to find a way out of all this. It is our responsibility. And during these talks here and discussions, if we are at all serious, and we must be, perhaps we shall be able to resolve or find a way for our souls, a way of life that is not contradictory, that doesn't breed antagonism, a way of life in which there is no conflict, no prejudice, a way of life in which there is abundance of love. Otherwise, it seems to me, it's so utterly futile to meet year after year in this rather hot spot amidst the beauty of these mountains and valleys and streams, not to change, not to bring about, irrespective of circumstances, irrespective of the economic, social environment, putting aside all the superficial realities, to radically, basically change the way of our life. That is what we are concerned with during these talks. And it seems to me that's the only thing that matters. Because man is exploring more and more the outer things, going to the moon, living under the sea, doing the most extraordinary technological thing, transplanting the human heart into another human being, and so on, all outwardly. In the technological field, incredible things are being done, which need great cooperation, great technical knowledge, enormous willingness to put together vast machines of destruction. Think out various ways of destroying the so-called enemy. Outwardly, man is vastly progressing, if that word can be used. But inwardly, I mean by inwardly, inside one's mind and inside one's heart, from which behavior comes, there we are almost at a standstill. We don't seem to care. Each one of us go our ways, never acting as a total human being, but according to our whims and tendencies, emotional outbursts, never a whole, complete action. And our problem, not only the individual but also the collective problem, is can human being living in this world, however terrible and brutal and violent and confused it is, can we change? That seems to me the real issue. Not more drugs, not more theories, not more beliefs or change from one belief or one dogma to another, join this group or that group, go to the various monasteries in the East to meditate, whatever that may mean. Pick up some religious book and try to find out what truth is according to a certain pattern of thinking. All that seems so utterly immature and childish. And what are we going to do? Perhaps we disregard this challenge. We don't take it seriously. Therefore, encourage and live in a world that is murderous, that has no meaning whatsoever anymore. And we are asking each other, or putting to each other this challenge. How you can completely change so that you are a different human being with real love, Not pleasure, mere pleasure involved in that word, in which there is sex, there is emotional ups and downs. A love in which there is no prejudice. In which there is no fear. In which there is no fragmentation as yours and mine and the opposing elements of one's own desires and passions. Because without that love, we'll always live in fragmentation. As Christians, as Buddhists, as Frenchmen, Swiss and English and all the rest of the immature, childish cultivation of what is considered nationalism, which is utterly poisonous. And without that love, there is no unity. Because that's what's needed in the world. The unity of mankind. Not according to the League of Nations. Is it called the League of Nations? Or United Nations? Or according to some ugly politician, or to any human beings who committed to a particular social theory, or to a particular religious dogma. Because our lives are fragmented. If one observes it very closely, you'll see for yourself how we are torn apart. How our lives are tortured. There's fear, despair, loneliness, great sorrow, depending on others, greedy, possessive, you know what we are. And we think that these fragments of our life, which is our life, the business life, the family life, which is so utterly different, the life of enjoyment, the life of vacations, the separate inward life of each one of us, the resistances. In this fragmentation is our life. And therefore, there is no love. Realizing this fragmentation, we try to put the thing together through meditation or through some belief or through self-forgetfulness by getting involved in some social reform or in some activity, which all become a kind of entertainment, a distraction. So can we bring about in our life a complete harmony and from that harmony to act, to live? You know, to go into all this requires a good mind, requires considerable attention, requires earnestness, in which there is urgency, and a great deal of patience. Realizing that we live a fragmented life, a broken up life, how is it possible? Please ask yourself, I'm only suggesting it. How is it possible to bring about a life in which there is no fragmentation at all? A life which is whole, complete, total. Man must have and has asked this question. And as he cannot find a way out, he says, I depend on God, quotes. On the higher self, Atman, he invents a lot of words. On grace, on further experience, enlightenment. That is, those who are serious answer this way. And if you discard all the theories of the theologians, the believers, the traditionalist, if you completely put aside all that, as one must, because they have utterly failed, the traditionalists in education, the traditionalists of the politician, in politics, in religion and so on, they have completely failed. And how are you and I? How are we? That's better. How are we going to bring about a wholeness in our life in which there is no fragmentation ever? Because it is this fragmentation that breeds conflict. Do please listen. It is hard, I know. Do please find out. How are we going to bring about a whole condition, a state, in which any kind of fragmentation or contradiction ceases completely. And from that state live, act, be. How shall we set about it? Knowing that we are broken up into many, many, many fragments. How shall we bring about a unity? Shall that unity be with all the various fragmentations, that is so-called integration of the fragments, which is quite absurd? That is our usual train. Or shall we take fragment by fragment, analyzing, examining, understanding one fragment and then go on to the next and so on, which is infinite process, and by the time, if you ever are able to do it, perhaps you'll be dead. Or by taking one fragment, whatever it be, and giving all our attention to it, completely understand what is involved in that fragment. How it comes into being. See the totality, the inwardness of that fragment. And I think if you do that, then all the other fragments are involved in that one fragment. The other way, which is the analytical process of examination of each fragment, requires not only time, but also a mind that can see each fragment very, very clearly, so that when it examines the next fragment, it doesn't carry over the memory of the fragment which has been examined. Because if you are going to examine each fragment, you must come to it with a fresh fragment, with a fresh mind. And the mind itself is fragmented. So can we take one fragment, pleasant or unpleasant, and go into it so completely, being fully aware of all the implications of that fragmentation, and so in the understanding of it, is it possible to understand all the other fragments in that fragment? Are we communicating with each other over this question? Because at the end of this talk, we're going to discuss the matter. by asking questions and going into it. You understand the problem? Man has always lived a life in which there is this contradiction. He has created a society which is also contradictory. And he is everlastingly in battle with himself and with society. With what he calls God and his own life. He lives a different kind of life in the office, and at home is quite a different human being. And even in that relationship of at home, of the family, in that too there is a contradiction, because he is in himself self-centered, isolating himself with his ambitions, envies, greeds, prejudices. And so is the wife and the husband. So he lives in this constant contradiction, fragmentation. How shall we solve this? If you do not solve it completely, your talk about truth, God, peace is utterly meaningless and stupid. Because how can a mind that is tortured, that's a battlefield, understand something that is everlastingly beautiful? Understand something which is not of time, which is not the product of effort and conflict and torture, pain and misery. That's not a reward, but that comes naturally as the flower blossoms in goodness. So how shall we, realizing our life is broken up, how shall we take one problem in the examination of which all other problems are involved? Shall I go on with it? Please. You have also to work, not just merely listen to the words of the speaker. You have to work hard, apply. So that at the end of the hour you are exhausted. Because you're going to exercise all your capacity, however little it is. To find out whether in one fragment are not all the other fragments involved. And if you understand that fragment so completely, so wholly, then you have solved everything. Are you waiting for me? First of all, in examination of one problem, one fragment, one contradiction, certain things are absolutely necessary. There must be no conclusion whatsoever. If I have a conclusion, if there is a conclusion, a formulation, a stand, then that conclusion, that stand, acts as a barrier or becomes a prejudice, so that you are incapable of looking. Right? That is, we are saying that instead of wasting time and energy in the examination of the many problems, fragmentations, the national, the political, the religious, the personal, the communal, this breakup, instead of examining each thing by itself, we are saying, in the understanding of that one issue, if you know how to look, you will find all other fragmentations are involved in that one. And to look, there must be freedom to observe. And freedom means freedom from all conclusion. What you think, what you believe, what you know, what you don't know, what your prejudices are, what your experiences are. So that your mind is fresh to look. Right? Can you do that? Look, one has a problem of dependency on money, on dependency, family, friends, all that business. Husband, child. Oh Lord, so many things one depends, doesn't one? Apart from the physical needs, there are so many psychological dependencies. Now, to look at that, to look into the involvement, the implication of that, you must come to it surely with a clear mind, inquiring mind. Not say, I have to depend, or find excuses for dependency, and so on. Otherwise you can't investigate. Right? So, to examine, there must be freedom from prejudice, conclusion, what your personal idiosyncrasies are. Can you do that first? So that the mind being free, which is one of the most arduous and difficult things to do, because all our life and our education the society in which we live, the religious culture, demands that you have conclusions, principles, ideologies. And with that burden, with that conditioning, you look. And so you never see. So can we be free of the known conclusions first? The known. You know your own conclusions, your own beliefs, your own dogmas, your what say I am right, you are wrong, I think this and I think you think, this conclusion, this assertion, in which there's pride, arrogance is involved. Can you come to this problem, which, for example, dependency, with a mind that has not anchored in any form of belief, conclusion, hope, fear, so that it can look. If you are, then that is the most important thing, not dependency, but whether it is possible for the mind to be free of conclusions, that I am a Frenchman, or a Gaullist, the Gaullist, Nixon or not, That becomes the first importance, to see whether the mind can be free of all the assertions, prejudices. Right? Aren't you full of prejudices? Huh? Like and dislike, offering opinions about everything on earth. Full of conclusions. This is the way to meditate, this is the way to live, this is not the way to live, this way to think, The images that one has built up through life, which is based on this arrogance and pride and prejudice. Aren't you? I don't have to tell you, you know it. Can you be free of that? Do please go into it. Never saying I'm a Christian. Of course, that's an old-fashioned now. Never asserting, I am right. This is what I think. This is my experience and I am right. You know what prejudices are? The good ones and the bad ones. Prejudice is prejudice. There is no good prejudice or bad prejudice. There is only prejudice. Can one be free of that first? Because it is these prejudices, these conditionings that prevent freedom and examination, looking. And if you have a prejudice, and you jolly well know you have them by galore, many of them, then how are you going to be free of them without conflict? You understand the question? Let's say I am prejudiced about my nationality. I am a Hindu. I've been brought up in it, believing in all its superstitions, in its fictitious realities, myths, and all the rest of it. And how am I to be free of it? If I fight it, if I say I must be free, several things are involved in it. Who is it that says I must be free? In that, when he says I must be free, there is duality. And in that duality there is contradiction, and therefore there is conflict. And therefore you will never get rid of that particular prejudice. You may substitute another prejudice. You're following all this? You will presently, probably you're not used to this particular kind of language or communication, but it doesn't matter. And I realized, being prejudiced as a Hindu, I say, how am I to be free so that it's like just dropping a burden without any effort? Knowing if I make effort, it is either resistance, the action of will, or some seeking some future or greater pleasure. So I must drop it so completely and instantaneously without any effort that it's out, completely out. I am no longer a beastly Hindu. I wish I could use a stronger word. I don't know any other strong word. So that the mind is free, untortured, not driven by will, resistance, so that it is a fresh mind. Now you take your particular prejudice of which you are aware. Please do it as the speaker is talking about it. Don't wait till another day. Do it with the intensity and the urgency of the moment. You are aware of your own known prejudice. You know what it means. Or you don't know what it means. Go into it. Find out what is involved in it, how it separates, divides people. And that very division, both within and without, is the cause of conflict, separation, war. Realizing the known prejudice, How will you be free of it? Will you battle it? Will you resist it? Or cultivate another prejudice in opposition to the known prejudice? All that involves a separation on the part of the examiner. The examiner says, I am separate from the thing examined. Therefore I must get rid of it or keep it or change it. But if the examiner is the examined, then the problem is entirely different. When the examiner realizes he is the examined, the examiner being the conclusion, says, I must get rid of this. I must change this. I must resist it. That examiner is the thing which he has examined. It's part of him. It's not something separate. When the mind realizes that, realizes it completely, totally, then there is quite a different kind of action. In that there is no effort involved at all. Till you do this, not verbally, but actually, you will not be able to see deeply. You will not be able to understand that all the fragmentations are contained in the one fragment, which is the observer, the examiner. I hope you're doing this, because the house is burning. You understand what I mean? The house, your house, the world you live in. Though you may live in Switzerland, secluded, a monotonous bourgeois life, a repetition. The world is burning. There are riots, wars, hatreds, miseries. And nobody seems to come together in love to solve this thing. Each is pulling in different direction with his belief, with his assertions, with his dogmas. This is not an emotional appeal. We are just stating facts. So unless you understand this question for yourself, not because the speaker says so, then unless you do this, it is inevitable that you will live the days of your life in conflict. And therefore, you will never be able to look at the tree or the mountain or the flower or the flowing waters with clear, unspotted eyes, with a heart that is completely innocent. Perhaps now, after saying all that, we can talk about it a little bit, discuss it. Or have you had enough? If we merely talked for an hour, that may be enough, is it?
Sir, if you have no prejudice, how come your employees are organizing seclusive groups, schools, and different kinds of
Good,
arrangements?
good. How is it that if you have no prejudices, and he uses the most unfortunate word, your employees, they are not my employees.
According to me, they are.
To you, sir.
But perhaps not
Please,
to
just
you.
a minute, sir. You have asked a question. How is it that you are employees and they are not employees? They are not paid by me or by a group and so on. They are not, please, sir. Sir, leave all that. If you want to go into all that, I will. But don't be prejudiced in asking the question. Wait a minute, sir, please, sir.
How am I not to be?
That's your affair.
That's my affair, I'm asking the question.
So you're not asking the question to be free of your particular prejudice.
But perhaps I want to be free according to my own standards. How
That's
can I
it.
be trying to be free according
You
to
want to be free according to your own standards. Just think of stating such as,
How are you not to? How is that possible not to be? How can I be free according to you? Is that possible?
probably, sir, if I may point out most respectfully and kindly, you have not paid attention to what has been said during the hour.
According to you, you mean?
I said most respectfully, I said.
Well, I can shut up if you like.
The question was, how is it, if you are not prejudiced, that you have an exclusive group of Americans and Europeans living in a particular place at Schoenried?
Among other things.
Yes, sir, please, sir, calm down. There is such a group of young people living in Schoenried.
No,
Wait, sir, please. I am not, please, sir, I am answering. If you want to, please,
There
sir.
has been a misunderstanding before. I'd like to clear it up. Now, there is not only the group in Schoenried, there is the Saanen gathering here, which last year put in a Saanen paper that the Krishnamurti meetings were not connected with the hippies living in Saanen. There is also the foundation, there is the school in Rockwood, and, well, I don't know, the books, the pictures, the records, the whole thing.
So what is the question, sir?
Well, I am asking you to clear that out, because that concerns all the people who are present. Because people have been coming to these meetings for many years. They have donated a hell of a lot of money.
What are you
have yourself also said that you were going to organize schools. There has been questions
What is the
asked about the money.
What is the question, sir?
Perhaps this is a discussion only with a legitimate question, sir.
What, sir?
Do the questions have to be legitimate questions according to you?
Do the questions have to be legitimate according to me? Isn't this rather a waste of time?
I don't think so. I think this concerns a lot of people coming a long way to these meetings, sir.
Sir, please, sir. See,
There have been
sir,
people
sir.
to these meetings for hell of a lot of years. They
Sir,
have
please,
given a hell
sir.
of a lot of money. This money has been in the hands of people who are around that land, and according to some people, and according to me, there has been...
Why don't you shut up?
You want to listen to Krishnamurti? All right. You can keep him in a box and then open him every day you want. No. What I'm talking about concerns all the people who are here.